5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're now tuning in to Way Gaming Podcast, hosted by One Way Soldier. We answer your gaming-related questions and talk about gaming-related topics. Now available on major platforms like iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, and others, helping you game with a better understanding.
Hey, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Way Gaming. I'm your host, One Way Soldier, or you can call me Carl. And here on Way Gaming, we answer your gaming-related questions and talk about game-related topics. And today's episode, there's a topic that I want to talk about. A game that I'm very excited for that's coming out soon, God willing. And I've been waiting for a while. It's been announced, I do believe, for... was it 2020 was released? Or was it... announced in 2020. I forgot what year it was announced, but we finally have a release date recently, and that game I'm talking about is House of the Dead Remake for the Nintendo Switch. It's releasing on April 7th of 2022. Now, this ain't a gaming news channel, unless it was a question somebody asked, and then, I'll talk about it here on the show. But I'm a big fan of, and you guys heard me mention it before on the show. I'm a big fan of gunrail shooters. I love it. I remember the first time, I remember going to the arcades when I was younger. I think in New Rochelle back in New York. And I just remember playing the Jurassic Park gunrail shooter, some agent game. It wasn't like a 007 game, but it was like you play as a secret agent or something, and that was really good. And of course, the classic Time Crisis. You can ask anybody that I know. Every time that I mention, hey, you want to go to arcade? I always say, okay, is Time Crisis there? It has to be there. An arcade is not an arcade unless Time Crisis is there. And then also, I was much younger, but then also my experience at home with the PlayStation 2. That era, oh my goodness, some classic gunrail shooters on there. Time Crisis 2, I remember I went to my aunt and my uncle's house, and when I was there, after I came out, I'm so excited I can't even talk. After I came out from school, my aunt used to babysit me and my sister, and they had a PlayStation 2 there, and my uncle, he played PlayStation 2 games like God of War. That's how he also got me into the Devil May Cry series and God of War. And then I think even The Getaway he got me into, but also he played Time Crisis 2. I remember, man, I used to look forward to school ends. I think any kid did, but specifically me, I looked forward to going to my aunt's house and play Time Crisis 2 for hours. I never got sick of it. I played through all of it again and again and again, especially the more times you play it, the more lives you unlock, I think, different, content, whatever. Man, I love Time Crisis 2. That's my jam right there. And Time Crisis 3 as well, when that came out, and etc., right? So in other words, House of the Dead Remake is an interesting situation. Happy that, the first one is actually getting a remake, because to be honest with you, I've never played the first one. When I was younger, I played Part 2, Part 3, and then the other games where I'll discuss here shortly. But the reason why, it's exciting. It's being remade, the first one, in modern day graphics on the Switch, and it's a little strange because there's not going to be, or as of right now, at least, as of right now, I'm hoping there'll be an announcement of some kind, but as this moment in time, or as of this recording, which is in March 18th, there's no gunrail coming out for it, or at least, gun, like a gun con or something. That we use back on the PlayStation 2 or, etc. So it's weird because you get to play with the controller. They obviously designed the game around the Joy-Cons and, using that, but also using gyro controls. I'm very curious of how accurate that would be, because I know it's not like the Wii sensor, right? It's not like you could just fling the thing everywhere, I guess, but gyro controls is very, how should I say? I don't want to say in terms of motion, it's more narrow. Like it's good, but I don't think it's meant to play a whole gunrail shooter with it, or at least to my knowledge. So I'm very curious about that. But what's interesting is if you go on the Amazon listing, and it turns out, which is also exciting news, it looks like Amazon leaked that the House of the Dead remake, from the one that's coming from Nintendo Switch, is coming in a physical form. So April 7th, of this year, 2022, you're able to buy it digitally on the eShop, but you're going to have to wait a little bit to receive the physical copy, which is no problem. Hey, as long as the physical copy is coming, I'm excited, I'm happy. And what I do prefer companies releasing their digital games first, right? And then later on release the physical copy when, they release day one patches or updates or whatever, and they put that on the disc. I don't mind that at all. I just don't like when the physical copy comes out along with digital, there's a day one patch, and then, 15 years later, you put the disc in, and then, servers are shut down, you can't download that patch, so therefore you have a broken game. But that's a whole nother discussion. So, I was really excited, to see that this listing, the Amazon listing, it is coming in physical form. But what's also really curious, and I don't want to get my hopes up here, because if you look at the description of the listing, it says, House of the Dead remake, whatever, right? The game that started all, and then you could play with a friend, like in single player, or you could play with a friend on a controller, and or a gun. And I'm like, wait, a gun? Are they releasing this with a gun con or something? Are they gonna release a gun with this? So I don't know. That's a little topic right now. I do believe Spawnwave actually spoke about it on his channel on YouTube. Awesome guy. It's awesome. I love his content. But it got people curious. Like, wait, are they releasing this digital first, and then later they're coming out? They're gonna release a physical copy? Because right now there's a placeholder date. It says like December 31st, 2022. That's just a placeholder date. There's really no dates on when the physical copy is coming out. And then people were just, speculating or hoping that they would release a gun con of some kind alongside of it. But I think what they mean, or a gun, I think they're going to release sort of like a gun shell alongside, I guess, with the physical copy of the game. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Because really, again, there's gyro controls, but there's not, I do believe one of the Joy-Cons does have like a camera side of it, but I don't think it's really accurate or meant to be played as, like a PlayStation Move, for example. I mean, yes, you could play like Mario Tennis and use it to swing your racket, or you could, baseball, right? You could, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, that'll be interesting. I definitely want to try it out when it comes out. Definitely, hands down, I need to, because I'm a big fan of, House of the Dead games. But yeah, I'm really curious on, if it's just, the gun shell that's already released to the market, like from third parties, or are they going to come out with the same design, but like their own theme, or are they planning to come out with an actual gun con or some kind, so, it's at least room for curiosity, but I'm not trying to get my hopes up. I do believe it's just a gun shell, and that's what we're going to be seeing. So I can't wait for, again, the release date of, the release of this to physical, I can't wait for the physical release date. Oh boy. So with that being said, and this is a very interesting topic for me because it makes me sort of want to go back, because it's crazy, because we seen for the Nintendo Wii, right? Nintendo had a large library, I'll say fairly large, maybe like 10 games or so, maybe more. Yeah, I think more than that. Yeah, I think way more than that. But in other words, there was a few gun con, because a lot of people say, oh, the Wii's a gimmick, right? But no, actually, I love the Wii. A lot of people did. It sold millions. But for me, the Nintendo Wii was a gunrail shooter console. Because, the last, was it gunrail console? I mean, you had like the PlayStation 1, right? That's when the gun con first came out. Well, actually, and also going further back, I mean, the Sega Saturn had like its own gun accessory for it. But I want to keep it simple. So, PlayStation 1 had the gun con. The gun con, the number of whatever gun con. So, for example, gun con 2, the number represents what generation that's on. So, gun con 2, that's for the PlayStation 2. There was also a gun con 3 for the PlayStation 3. And, this episode, maybe the next episode, or I'll do a part 2 to this episode, because I'll talk more about gunrail shooters that were released on the PS3, for another time. But there was a Gun Con 3 for the PlayStation 3, and only Time Crisis 4, and then also the Time Crisis collection. Rising Storm, right? It brought the, Time Crisis Rising Storm on it, Time Crisis 4, the arcade version, and then I think it's like Dead Pirates. I think the game is called. Those three games on one Blu-ray disc, and those support the Gun Con 3, which is really cool. The Gun Con 3 is very accurate, very awesome. I don't know why they didn't support it more, for whatever reason. But anyway, without getting off topic, the Nintendo Wii was an amazing console for gunrail shooters. And I purchased most of them. I'm a big fan of that, like I mentioned. And what's really cool is that even the Nintendo Wii, the Wii remote was used. And it was very accurate. Very accurate. The Wii sensor and the remote, very accurate. It felt really nice. How I would, compare, it was very, how should I say? It was very accurate, but like, it didn't feel as accurate as a Gun Con, because the Gun Con, like for example 2 and Gun Con 1, I do believe it uses the reflection off the CRT TVs, and it will use like a flash. But like, in other words, you point and shoot. And for the Nintendo Wii, with the cursor stuff, it sort of felt like you had to hover the cursor to your target. I know that sounds a little weird, but that's like the best way I could explain it. But still felt nice to play, and still felt amazing to play these Gun Con games on the Nintendo Wii. And because of that, again, they also didn't release a dedicated Gun Con for, I feel like I said that word a lot. For the Nintendo Wii, they used gun shells. There was a lot of third party that were making gun shells. Nintendo released the Nintendo Wii Zapper to play these gunrail shooters on, and which worked perfectly, and it feels great to play with a lot of these games. Because there's a lot of these games that you were, like for example, 007 GoldenEye for Nintendo Wii, you were able to play that strictly, with a controller. It's a first-person shooter, of course. Or you could use the Nintendo Wii Zapper, and you could sort of attach the nunchuck to the back of the Wii Zapper, use the analog stick to move and stuff, but then you could also point with the front end of the Zapper, like if you were playing a gunrail shooter, but the thing is you weren't. You were moving the analog stick and, pointing with the Wii, it didn't feel all that, but it was a nice way to sort of blend, a gunrail shooter experience, but at the same time, you're in full control of your character, because a gunrail shooter, obviously, you're not in control of the character, per se, or the movements, rather. You just point and shoot and light everything up in sight, right? So, it was really cool. It felt nice. And me, I brought a lot of gun shells for the Nintendo Wii. And it's cool. I even have the Resident Evil, Gun shell, like a collector's item is really awesome. I like that. So in other words, in this episode, the last time we saw like a new House of the Dead game, right, was House of the Dead Overkill. I do believe that was the last one. So it's it's a gunrail shooter. It was developed by Headstrong Games, but published by Sega for the Wii back in 2009. To be specific, February 10th, 2009, it released on. And it was a spin-off of the House of the Dead series, but it was also, it's a little weird, because it's non-canon, but it's a prequel to the original games. So, in other words, this game took place before House of the Dead 1, 2, 3, in that order, which is pretty cool, and it was the first time of the series to for them to do something and release, first time in the series that it was released solely on a home console. So it was cool. That's really cool, because it released in 2009 for the Wii, but then a few years later, in 2011, I believe, it released for the PlayStation 3, and that was called House of the Dead Overkill Extended Cut. And also, I think 2 years after that, so 2013, it released on Android and iOS. I didn't even know about that back at that time. But man, I beat this game for the Wii, and I'm telling you guys, like, do not let your kids play it. This game is really, it's strictly for adults. like, there's no way around it in terms of the language, in terms of, because when I played it, I didn't know it was that bad, to be honest. Like, the shooting felt great and stuff, the zombie, it felt like the identity as a whole felt like a House of the Dead game, but man, like, characters cuss after every sentence. And then also, there's even some, I'm not even gonna go there, but it's strictly for adults, I mean, there's no, how should I say, there's no, like, sexual content in the game, but something gross happens, and it was unexpected for me. It caught me off guard. I should have done further research, right? Before I bought it back then. But other than that, it's a good gun rail shooter, but strictly for adults. Emphasis on adults. Anyway, so, yeah, and then you also have House of the Dead. Before that, House of the Dead 2 and 3 Return, which was a remake back in March 11th, 2008, exclusively for the Nintendo Wii. Now, I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't know why Sega chose exclusively for the Wii, right? Like, and it's cool that they also released a physical format as well. You have it on disc, and I have a physical copy of that, so it's preserved, and played on the Wii, and I could play it on my Wii U. But it's really, I don't know, it's just strange that years later, they didn't release those two, because years later, House of the Dead 3 was re-released on the PS3, digital only, but they didn't release House of the Dead 2, which is weird. And then they also released House of the Dead 4 on the PS3, but they never released 2 nor 1 on the PS3. It was a little strange, but in other words, House of the Dead 2 and 3, you get them both on the Wii, one disc, and yeah, for the PS3, they went straight up digital, which to me, I really don't like. Oh my goodness. But anyway, back in March 11th, 2008, which is really, really cool. And, I want to also just, in this episode, talk more about some of my favorite, like, and the gun rail shooters that featured on Nintendo Wii. That I want to talk about. Another one of my favorites, or, again, I know it's just so sad today. It's like, you don't see this today, like, I mean, House of the Dead Remake 1, again, it's coming to Nintendo Switch, but that's like the only gun rail shooter on the Nintendo Switch. On the Wii, Nintendo heavily supported gun rail shooters on that platform, which is awesome. Then the Wii U happened, and then we didn't get any. And then Nintendo Switch, it's like, I don't even know how much years old it is at this point. It's like 6 years old now, I think. And this is the first gun rail shooter. I mean, better late than never, right? But still, we're not, so I hope that the remake sells a lot of units. I hope, because there's a lot of Switch owners out there. I hope this sells a lot of units. And I hope that this will be a start of, we're starting to see more gun rail shooters, or encourage other, like, publishers and stuff that, let's release some of our old titles onto Nintendo Switch. Let's release it on there, or even let's put some of our old titles also on the PS5 or something. I hope that really it takes that turn. I really hope. I really hope that this will spark, because again, it's crazy that we had a whole generation of silence. You know what I mean? Like, a Wii U, there was none, but yet the Wii had so many, but the Wii U had none. And then so late into the Switch lifespan, Switch, yeah. Anyway, so I hope this will be a start of something, and yeah, and these are great games on here. Yeah. So in other words, I'm gonna get right into it. So I want to talk about also Dead Space Extraction, which released September 24th, 2009, and then a couple of years later on the PlayStation Network, alongside with Dead Space 2. And this one is very interesting too, because it released physically, standalone. It featured on the Nintendo Wii. And then 2 years later, they released it again, like I mentioned, on the PS3 in digital form, but the only way, people say, oh, only release digital on the PS3. That's not exactly true, because you could actually get the PS3 version in a physical format if you were to purchase the Dead Space 2 limited edition. Right there on the box, it says includes Dead Space Extraction, which is really awesome. And it's only like 3 gigs or something, because it's in the disc, and you would have to download it, onto the console, which is like, I think 2 or 3 gigs or so. And you get to play in HD, 720p, I think 60 frames per second. And, I do believe there's trophy support as well, which, again, it's awesome. Trophy support, and it looks gorgeous. And the only way to own Dead Space Extraction on the PS3 is by getting the Dead Space 2 limited edition. A lot of people don't know that, which is very interesting. Because, they were like, oh, I want a physical format, let me get the Nintendo Wii version. But you're playing it at 480p. If you want to play in HD, you grab the PS3 version. And this one is awesome. This one is Dead Space Extraction. It's a spin-off within the Dead Space series. And then there's also a prequel to the original game, which is amazing, which is awesome. I played a little bit of it. I'm going to be honest. I had this on my backlog for a long time. I played a couple of levels. I love it. It really is good. It really is good. You get to use the iconic weapons and stuff. It's really unique. And I say that really in an awesome way. It fit perfectly for a gunrail shooter style game, the Dead Space universe, I guess. So highly recommended. And yeah, if you're into that, look out for that. Now, I hope, Resident Evil, we have they recently announced the new Netflix series coming out. We had the Netflix animated show come out, which only had 6 or 7 episodes. I was super hyped about that, but then, which I think that was a prequel. That show, the Netflix show, was a prequel to Resident Evil 6. I do believe. But, I'm a big fan of Resident Evil. To be honest, the show was not all that. It was not all that. But, big fan of the games. I doubt we will ever see, another, another gunrail shooter. I don't think they will return to that style. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But, and, we have Resident Evil 8 Village that came out last year, right? And that was massively successful. Or Resident Evil 7, they released it on the PS4 and Xbox One, and they also, the PS4 version, you could play the complete entire game on VR. So I think you play in VR, it's weird that they didn't do that for Resident Evil 8. I know there was some confusion in terms of development, behind the scenes. Still, 8 became an amazing game. I want to know, there's even talks that possibly, with PlayStation VR 2, they're probably going to take that and make, Village VR and or the next installment, whatever that is. Or just make exclusive VR experience for Resident Evil. So I doubt we will see the Resident Evil return to a gunrail shooter style, because back in Nintendo Wii, we had Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, and then we had Resident Evil The Dark Side Chronicles. And the Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles released back in November 13th, 2007. And the PlayStation Network version released in June 26, 2012. And it's actually very interesting because the Dark Side Chronicles released on November 17th, 2009 for Nintendo Wii. So, moving forward a couple of years to 2012, so June 26 actually, they bundled both games in the PlayStation Network. They bundled Umbrella Chronicles and Dark Side Chronicles back in June 2012. And then in July 17th, 2012, they separated both titles and you could buy them individually on the PlayStation Network. For the bundle was $30, and then separate, each game was $15 a piece, which equals obviously $30, which was very cool. And man, what's disappointing to me, and again, it's a little nitpick, I guess, is just that, I have both games on Nintendo Wii. I have the physical form, which is, all awesome. They're both great games. I don't care about graphics, but it's at 4080p resolution, but they re-released it in HD, which, makes the game look pretty, right? And it also has trophy support as well. And it isn't a fantastic gunrail shooter, especially the cooperative aspect is really dope, really awesome. And it's just weird that in the US and Europe, the game for the PlayStation, the PS3 versions of those two games released only digital, but in Japan, they received a physical copy of the Resident Evil. I think it's called the Resident Evil Chronicles collection. That's what it's called. So, and I do believe the PS3 is region free. So, to be honest, the collectors in me, like I might just pick up the PlayStation 3 copy, the Japanese copy, and so that way I just have it on a physical disc. But yeah, and it was cool because the Umbrella Chronicles, Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, it explores or exposes rather the Umbrella Corporation. So you will go. The game is narrated by Albert Wesker, who used to be Umbrella scientist. You see like hidden documents to the organization's secret motives and actions. And the game, it takes you back through different scenarios. So there will be missions, for example, that you would go through Resident Evil 0. And then you will go play out certain events from Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and I think probably one more. But yeah, I forgot. And then Resident Evil, the Dark Side Chronicles, it's you play it serves as a prequel to Resident Evil 4. So precisely it takes place 2 years before Resident Evil 4, which is really awesome. And man, it's a great game. Like literally, even for the Wii, the graphics were gorgeous. It was gorgeous, and you get to see like how Leon knew Krauser, because I remember playing Resident Evil 4 as well, and then you run into Krauser, right? That boss fight, and you're like, man, who the heck is this guy? How does Leon know him? It's like he knows everybody, but it's cool that in Dark Side Chronicles, you find out that, he used to be your boy and go on missions with you, which was really cool. And, you get to see that, and find out who Krauser is background more in Dark Side Chronicles. So I highly recommend both of these games, and it's really dope. And especially playing them in cooperative, oh man, I love it. Just gunrail shooter and Resident Evil, amazing time. Now, so the next game that I wanted to also talk about is a game called Ghost Squad. So Ghost Squad was published by Sega and developed by Sega AM2. And also, what's really cool about this game is that it reminds me, like, it's its own game, but it reminds me of like Time Crisis. Very similar. It's really awesome. Ghost Squad, and it was also a sequel to the game Ghost Squad Evolution. But only Ghost Squad, the first one, released on the Wii. It released it first in arcades, and then they made a home version, a Nintendo Wii version. But the sequel, which is Operation Ghost, it was released in arcades in 2012. So the Wii version, the first Ghost Squad game, released back in November of what's the day? Oh, there you go. November 20th, 2007. There you go. So yeah, and that game is dope. That game is awesome. And what I love about this game in particular too is that the more you replay it, there's a lot of content in there. So there's not only in terms of like, different costumes, right? So it's funny because I remember being in the game once, and it sort of randomizes what you unlock. So you could beat the game and you unlock a different weapon. Because I think you unlock, at first you start out with like a semi-automatic rifle or some kind or whatever. You beat the game once, which is only 3 stages. 3 stages are, a good length, but it's a gunrail shooter. And you beat 3 stages and bosses, whatever. You will unlock a new gun. So I think my first playthrough, I unlocked like this shotgun. The semi-automatic shotgun is so cool. It makes the game so much fun, and it's cool because the shooting a shotgun, it splatters, right? It has a wide pellets and stuff, so you could like kill multiple enemies, right, in one shot, which is really dope. And then another playthrough, you may unlock like a minigun or something. There's a whole bunch of weapons in the game. It's really awesome. And again, every playthrough, you unlock different outfits for your squad. You can unlock different theme outfits for enemies. So, for example, like, I don't know how to describe, the enemies how they look, like I guess military, right? But you beat the game once, and then you unlock ninja outfits. So all the enemies and even the bosses you see, they're like in like samurai armor and stuff, or ninja outfits, and I think there's even like a panda suit or something like that you could wear. It's very fun. It adds replayability, and you can play it cooperatively. And again, if you like Time Crisis, I compare it to Time Crisis, but not in a bad way. It feels like it feels similar to Time Crisis, but yet it has a unique feel to it. You know, it's its own thing. And it's one of the, you know, I love it. I love it. It's weird that we didn't see, it come to PS3 for whatever reason. Yeah, it was just released. Yeah, like I said, 2007, you know, November 20th. So, yeah, praise God. So, yeah. Moving on. The next game also on the Nintendo Wii that I wanted to talk about, which was really dope, is Medal of Honor 2. Well, Medal of Honor Heroes 2. So what's cool about this game is that it released for Nintendo Wii and the PSP. And what was cool is that each version was built for their respective consoles. So obviously the PSP version was built completely different than the Wii version. And what was dope is that the Wii version, not only it was the 12th installment of the Medal of the Medal of Honor series, but it's cool that you could play this game entirely as a first-person shooter with a controller, you know, the Wii remote, or you could use the controller to just play as a normal first-person shooter. But then there is an arcade mode where you could play through the entire campaign, the entire story mode, as a gunrail shooter. And you could use the Wii Zapper. And the way they implement it is amazing. It is amazing. It feels awesome. It's very, very fun. You shoot up enemies in sight with a Tommy gun. And it plays really well. What was also cool about this game is that not only it featured single player, but also featured multiplayer as well. And that's dope. Players could either use the Wii Zapper, which I think, you know, the multiplayer, it didn't play as a light gun shooter, because, I mean, obviously, how would you implement that? But you could, when you attach the nunchuck to the back of the Wii Zapper, you know, you use the analog stick to move, and then you point with the Wii remote and shoot enemies. So you could either play like that, or you could use a controller. And, yeah, it was just very, very fun and very awesome. Highly recommended. And, yeah, I wish, I miss Medal of Honor, to be honest. It went straight to like VR, you know, above and beyond and stuff. So, amen. Yeah, so Medal of Honor 2, very awesome for Nintendo Wii. And then another game that released on Nintendo Wii, and also Xbox 360 as well, is called Attack of the Movies 3D. Now, Attack of the Movies 3D is a gunrail shooter, but you play through there's 6 long levels in the game, but they are 6 different themes. So, for example, the first level, I do believe, is you're in a city, and then all of a sudden it's like EDF. It's like big bugs attacking a city or whatever, and you got to shoot up all these ants, disgusting stuff, and you use the Wii Zapper, you light them all up. It feels really good. It feels like an arcade shooter. Like, they did a very good job, you know. And the next mission, you might go into Egypt or something. You're shooting mummies and stuff in that nature, right? And I do believe there's even underwater. You go underwater and shoot up sharks and whatever. It's a really good shooter. So if you're a gunrail shooter, you have the Nintendo Wii. Highly recommend picking it up. And and again, if you bought the game brand new, it comes with 4 pairs of 3D glasses. Haven't really used that, but it's I give them credit for trying something new, and that's pretty awesome. And I can see how the 3D effects will look in a sense, because the monsters, they jump at you, you know what I'm saying? So seeing that in 3D, I'm sure will bug you out. The 360 version though, because the Nintendo Wii uses the Wii Zapper, and the 360 version I've never gotten, I'm not sure what you would use. I mean, I do believe this game came out in May 18th, 2010, and to my knowledge, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that came out before the Kinect. Yeah, I'm not sure you can even use the Kinect with this game. That's something I gotta look up. But yeah, I recommend the Wii version. You play at 480p, but again, playing with the Wii Zapper, it's an amazing experience. Really awesome. It feels like you're in the actual arcade. And then moving on to the next game, a couple of more for you guys, is Dino Strike. So Dino Strike, so now it's a little confusing because there's like sort of two franchises here. One was made by Ubisoft, and then the other, well, this game, Dino Strike, was made by Zoo. I do legit believe that's just their name, Zoo. And Ubisoft, they made, I think, Battle of the Giants. I think that's the name of the franchise, and you get to play as dinosaurs and you fight, or there's one game that, there's like 6 games in that series. But Dino Strike, and there's actually one other one, I believe. That one I have not played, and frankly, I don't even know about that one. But Dino Strike, I actually own, and it sort of plays like Jurassic Park. It reminds me back when I was a kid, and I went to like I mentioned earlier in this podcast episode, I used to play in the arcades, Jurassic Park. And Dino Strike, you play as this explorer, / hunter. Somehow he got lost on his island, so he becomes a prey, so to speak. Or rather, he was hunting, but now you're the hunted. And it's a gunrail shooter. You trying to survive and make your way off, I do believe, this island, and you're shooting up these T-Rexes, these raptors, etc. And you can play the game cooperatively, and it was good. It's awesome. It's not the best gunrail shooter, but it was fun. And again, it has that Jurassic Park feeling to it. And that came out on February 1st, 2011. Dino Strike for Nintendo Wii. And yeah, I recommend it. And then Heavy Fire Afghanistan. So this game released on the Nintendo Wii, the PS3, and I think other consoles. There's a total, I do believe, 5, maybe 6 games in the series. 2 of them, which a Heavy Fire Special Operations and a Heavy Fire Black Arms, those were exclusive, unfortunately, to the WiiWare section of the Nintendo eShop back from the Nintendo Wii. And I say unfortunately because there's no way to, those games were on the, WiiWare, and there's no way, those were only digital, and the Wii store closed. So there's no way to purchase that game again. Those 2 games again, they're lost forever until the developers decided to make a Heavy Fire collection and bring them to modern consoles. But, it sucks that those 2 games are gone. But Heavy Fire Afghanistan, again, like I said, featured on the Wii and PS3 on November 15th, 2011. And it's really cool. It's a fast-paced gunrail shooter action. You're shooting up everything in sight. You play as a Marine, and obviously you're on the campaign of, Afghanistan. And it's cool. You use like an M16. You run out of ammo for your M16, or you switch to like a Desert Eagle. And it's very good. Very cool. And again, the PS3 version, you could use a PlayStation Move. And there's also trophies for the game as well. And you get to play in HD, as to where the Wii version, again, 480p resolution. But it's a great gunrail shooter. Oh, and it also is, I do believe, on the PC as well. So it's funny because you could use your mouse to point and shoot. As to the Wii, you use the Wii Zapper. PS3, you use the PlayStation Move. So if you're a gunrail shooter fan, I highly recommend Heavy Fire. Afghanistan, very good. And then also there's a Heavy Fire Shattered Spear. I do believe that did not release on the Wii, but the Xbox 360, maybe the PS3, because I think if it released on the PS3, hands down, you'll be able to use the PlayStation Move controller. 360, I do believe, is strictly controller. And I think there might be multiplayer to my knowledge as well. But yeah, love that series. And then the last game that I wanted to talk about was Gunslingers. Gunslingers released in June 28th, 2011. It's a 4-player cooperative gunrail shooter, and it released exclusively to Nintendo Wii for whatever reason. But it's cool. You play as these 4 good guys, so to speak, in the Wild West, and you're trying to take down these outlaws, these gangs of stuff, and you go into town and you're like shooting up everything, shooting up all these bad guys, whatever. And it's very good. It's very good. The graphics are not obviously top notch. They have a certain style to it. But it's a very good gunrail shooter. And I do believe even if you have a physical copy of that, again, that's very expensive, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's an expensive game I gotta check price charting. That I should have done that before recording this episode. But I do believe you can still sell, like you see on eBay, people selling it for like $70, $58, etc. You see around that price range. But yeah, I'm not sure the exact value on the market for that game. So if you have a Nintendo Wii, like me, I highly recommend going, if you're in the big, especially if you're a gunrail shooter fan, hands down, I recommend checking out all these games. And again, I do plan to make a part 2 to this episode where I talk about, some of these games I mentioned are on the PS3, but there's even some, I mentioned briefly, some PS3 games, gunrail shooter games that are on the PS3. Because, it was more like the Nintendo Wii, and then, 2007, you had the PS3 also with the PlayStation Move coming out. That made it sort of like a gunrail shooting arcade machine, so to speak. And yeah, I missed that. Honestly, I missed that. Xbox One, PS4, we did not get games like that. It's actually at the Xbox One, there's this one game. Man, I'm trying to remember it. I think it's called the Blue Ostate. And yeah, the Blue Ostate, and it's really it was good. You could either use the Xbox One Connect sensor and or you could use the controller. For me, I used the controller, and it's very action-packed and stuff. Very good. But that was the first, I do believe, to my knowledge, that's the first and last gunrail shooter we saw on that platform, which is very weird. So, in summary, I hope with House of the Dead remake that's releasing on April 7th, 2022, check it out, guys. Buy it, support it. No, I hope that it sells enough units that Nintendo goes, you know what? Wow, this sold a lot. Let's contact Sega and let's bring all the House of the Dead games onto this platform, right? I hope it is that, and or it performs very well, and then we see other companies go, you know what? Yeah, let's bring back some of the classics onto the platform. Or Capcom goes, you know what? Let's bring Resident Evil, the Chronicles collection to the Nintendo Switch, and etc. I hope we get to see that. Because again, it was an amazing thing bringing an arcade experience home, like the Time Crisis series. And it's just like, man, we lost that. We stepped away from it. Now I understand everything is VR, etc., etc. You could sort of capture that experience in VR. I think there's a game like not Time Crisis, but Time Cruises or something. It's a little similar, but it's a VR shooter. You shoot up dinosaurs and stuff. But in other words, gunrail shooters and stuff is lost. So, I feel like it's lost and everything is like VR. But House of the Dead remake, it coming to console. I might be overhyping this thing. I might be just, it might just be, hey, they want to remake the classic and preserve it on modern console. That's it, right? It might be like that. But I don't know. I have hope. One could hope that this will start bringing the classics in, because we are starting to see too. I just had a thought the other day. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, but retro gaming, especially in 2020, a lot of people, because the lockdowns, they were stuck at home. They started buying retro games again. They started looking into purchasing retro consoles, and retro consoles are doing well in modern time. So hopefully, it was, back on the Xbox One and PS4, and we didn't see any even in this generation. Maybe it was just the beginning, but hopefully, it's time to bring that back. And I really hope we get to see a return of the gunrail shooters / light gun shooters. I hope we get to see a return of that, and I'll be one happy gamer. So, amen. So, thank you guys so very much for taking time out of your day to listen to this episode of Way Gaming. Again, if you have any questions and or any topics that you want me to just talk about or discuss here on the show, you can send your question at my email, twgpquestions@gmail.com. Make sure you write question in the subject bar, and also make sure you leave your name so that I could probably address you here on the show, and hopefully the next episode, your question or topic will be featured. If you don't want to send me an email, that's just fine. You can also contact me on Twitter. You could follow me on Twitter, at Way Gaming. Also, I have an Instagram, Way Gaming. Oh my god, this is embarrassing. I'm like on air and I like drew a blank. So sorry. I do believe I have, sorry. Okay, there you go. So yeah, on Instagram, you could follow me at Way Gaming Podcast. Oh, it's so embarrassing. Sorry about that, guys. And then also I have a YouTube where I upload the latest episodes on there. Way Gaming Podcast as well. Ooh, am I forgetting anything else? I'm not on Facebook, but yeah, I think that's it for now. All right, guys. Well, thank you so very much, and please, wherever you're tuning in from, whether on YouTube or you're on your favorite podcasting site like Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, etc., make sure to subscribe, follow, write something in the comments. Tell me what is some of your favorite light gun shooters, and please tell your friends and family about Way Gaming and tell them that it's an interactive experience where, they can ask their questions and or topics and be a part of the show. Amen. So I love you guys. God bless you. Jesus loves you. My name is One Way Soldier, and this is the end of my transmission. And until next time.